Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here in Radha Lane, the spiritual world, where devotees come and hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam every day without fail. At least some of them. Right next to Sri Sri Radha Nilamadava's temple, and we have Esteban here, coming for the first time. We welcome you with affection. Thank you for coming. And welcome to all of you out in cyberspace. And I want to make a point that we've been a little bit negligent not seeing comments or questions coming from outside on the cyberspace. So we need to be a little bit more attentive so that we can answer the questions when they come out. Hey, Javier.
Hello.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let us proceed. We're going to read, as usual, every day we read a beautiful prayer written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who is the senior disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the last time Krishna appeared personally on this earth, and that was 500 years ago, not so long ago. And Lord Chaitanya spent more time teaching Sanatana Goswami than anyone else. So he's a very special soul. In the spiritual world, he's an intimate servant of Srimati Radharani. Okay, so this is called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. Glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Dutitaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsha Ksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna myself. That was my phone, by the way, which we're using to record. Who was it? Huh? Matt, okay. Marikabando Matsangin. Oh, I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. Prema means love of God. You can always be served by Endo Matsangi Mannishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy. I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Atini Chotatakara Hanamunchagadachin Mam Prem Narit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we're hearing more and more and more about the cosmic creation. Verses confirmed by the Purusa-sukta which is a part of the original 4 Vedas. Hare Krishna. And Lord Brahma, who is the first created being in the universe, he's a jiva soul, a regular soul, but he's empowered by Krishna to be the engineer of the universe. Just like outside we're building this big building. So there's some laborers and there's some people bringing the ingredients, and there's a guy coming over with a plan, floor plan, or what do they call it? Blueprint. Thank you. See, I told you those long fingers. Didn't I? Yeah, I told you. Anyway, but there's a guy who's actually aware of the whole thing, and he's the engineer, but he's not the owner. The owner's paying for it. He's actually the one that's doing it. Without the owner, nothing happens. So Krishna, he is the owner, and he's giving all the ingredients. He's giving everything. But Brahma, he takes those ingredients and he constructs the universe. So Narada Muni, his mind-born son means when Brahma comes into the universe, there's only one living being in the universe in the very beginning. And certain living beings come out from his body without the help of a woman. And so Narada Muni is noticing this, and he's very, very smart. From previous universe, previous birth in the previous universe, he's very, very smart. So he starts asking his father, Brahma, I noticed that everything seems to be coming from you. Are you God? And this whole, oh my God, call out the guards. Get on the case of anybody who locked the door should be flogged. No, that's a little bit. I wonder. I didn't think you. I knew that you were a man of your word. Hey, Eric, Hare Krishna. So nice to see you again. Hey, Haribo, Hare Krishna. That sounds like Sarva. It is. Sarva, right there. You're just about to sit down. Just sit down. Fantastic. Right time at the right place. Okay, who locked the door? No, you didn't lock the door?
No.
Who locked the door? Somebody. I put a key under the mat.
He said one of Donald Trump's agents.
We have a standing joke over here. Whenever I read something that's really true, I say note to Trump. They should get the message. Well, more and more people are trying to. Anyway, that's another topic. Oh, this is more like it. Yeah, getting the band back together. Okay, great. All right, so Narada Muni, so Brahma is explaining to Narada Muni how come he isn't God. And he's explaining how he got the potency and the ingredients and everything to do what he's doing to create the universe. So we're right in the middle, so it's a little esoteric, but tune in your thinking caps, turn them up, put out your antennas, and away we go. All right. Purusa-sukta Confirmed, Canto 2, Chapter 6, beginning with text 27. Lord Brahma is speaking, and he says to Narada Muni, thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the bodily parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigod's names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. Purport. In this verse, special stress is given to the person of the Supreme Lord, and not to his impersonal Brahmajyoti, as being the source of all supplies. Narayana, the Supreme Lord, is the goal of sacrificial results, and therefore the Vedic hymns are ultimately meant for attaining this goal. Human life is thus made successful by pleasing Narayana and getting entrance into the direct association of Narayana in the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha. Text 28. Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the body of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice. And I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. Purport. People in general are always anxious to have peace of mind or peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable, but they do not know how to achieve such a standard of peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable by performance of sacrifice and by practice of austerity. In the Bhagavad Gita, the following prescription is recommended. Don't you remember when your mother taught you? Better to give than to receive. That's the spirit of sacrifice. In the Bhagavad Gita 5.29, the following prescription is recommended. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richtiti. The karma yogis know that the Supreme Lord is the factual enjoyer and maintainer of all sacrifices and of the austere life. They also know that the Lord is the ultimate proprietor of all the planets and is the factual friend of all living entities. Such knowledge gradually converts the karma yogis into pure devotees of the Lord through the association of unalloyed devotees, and thus they are able to be liberated from material bondage. Brahma, the original living being within the material world, taught us the way of sacrifice. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interests for the satisfaction of a second person. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaged in sacrificing his interests for others, either in the form of family, society, community, country, or the entire human society. But perfection of such sacrifices is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Person, the Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything, because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures, and because He is the maintainer of the performer of sacrifice, as well as the supplier of the ingredients of sacrifice, it is He only, and no one else, who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, and plans for total improvement of the human condition. But no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord. It is as it is advertised in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, there is no peace in the world. If men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the supreme proprietor and friend of all. So this is really, symbolized by recent developments in the evangelical area, where the philosophy has become what? No, part of it. No. I mean, it's true, but there's a word I'm looking for. Prosperity. The philosophy is prosperity. You send me your money, and you'll get money in return, which they never do. And the guy flies around in a jet or something, or goes to Denver or someplace to, ski or something. So this is not what it's talking about. That's not sacrifice. That you give your money to some character who says you'll get prosperity, and because I'm offering it to God, and you know me, I'm plugged in, and you're not. So therefore, and that's the way it stays. Generally speaking, that's not to say that there aren't sincere persons out there in every religion, but this is the general trend. Text 29. My dear son, Thereafter, your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, performed the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Purport. The manifested personalities are the demigods, like the ruler of the heavenly kingdom, Indra, and his associates. And the non-manifested personality is the Lord himself. The manifested personalities are mundane controllers of the material affairs, whereas the non-manifested personality of Godhead is transcendental, beyond the range of the material atmosphere. In this age of Kali, the manifested demigods are also not to be seen, for space travel is completely stopped. So both the powerful demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non-manifested to the covered eyes of modern man. Modern men want to see everything with their eyes, although they are not sufficiently qualified. Consequently, they disbelieve in the existence of the demigods or of the Supreme God. They should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes, tinged with the ointment of love of God. Text 30. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Purport. The Daityas are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are ekanishta, or absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facility. Because of their realization of their spiritual identity, they are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. 31. All the material manifestations of the universe are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Purport. The question put by Narada before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the 3 qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources, and similarly, he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he is always fully complete in 6 opulences. Therefore, he is not required to do anything personally, but everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, and this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertion in this connection is therefore the supreme information. Text 32. By his will I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these 3 energies. Purport. The conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. The one is Lord Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and in the spiritual worlds, maintained. In the material world also, Lord Vasudeva is everything, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Everything is Vasudeva only. In the Vedic hymns also, the same Vasudeva is held to be supreme. It is said in the Vedas, Vasudevat Pado Brahman Nachanyorto Sti Tatvataha. In fact, there is no greater truth than Vasudeva. And Lord Krishna affirms the same truth in the Bhagavad Gita. Matta Padatanam Nanyat. There is nothing above me, Lord Krishna. So the conception of oneness, as overly stressed by the impersonalist, is also accepted by the personalist devotee of the Lord. The difference is that the impersonalist denies personality and the ultimate issue, whereas the devotee gives more importance to the personality of Godhead. Srimad-Bhagavatam explains this truth in the verse under discussion. Lord Vasudeva is one without a second, but because he is all-powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, Trishakti Drik. So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. This external energy is also displayed in the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in three spiritual modes, Sambit, Sandini, and Ladini. The marginal potency, or the living entities, is also spiritual, Prakritim, Vidime Param. But the living entities are never equal to the Lord. The Lord is Nirasta Samya Atishaya. In other words, no one is greater than or equal to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, including even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are all subordinate to the Lord. In the material world also, in his eternal form of Vishnu, he maintains and controls all the affairs of the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. Text 33. My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you, and you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The complete cosmic situation, both in the material and the spiritual manifestations of the energies of the Lord, is working and moving first as the cause and then as the effect. But the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Effects of the original cause become the causes of other effects, and thus everything, either permanent or temporary, is working as cause and effect. And because the Lord is the primeval cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, as well as in the Bhagavad Gita. The Brahma Samhita affirms Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mattak Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. So the original primeval cause is Vigraha, the personal, and the impersonal spiritual effulgence, Brahmajyoti, is also an effect of the Supreme Brahman. Brahmanohi Pratishtaham. That's the Gita 14:27. Lord Krishna. Text 34. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false. Nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Purport. Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom to Narada, and Narada is the distributor of transcendental knowledge all over the world through his various disciples, like Vyasadeva and others. The followers of Vedic wisdom accept the statements of Brahmaji as gospel truth, and transcendental knowledge is thus being distributed all over the world by the process of disciplic succession from time immemorial, since the beginning of creation. Lord Brahma is the perfect, liberated living being within the material world, and any sincere student of transcendental knowledge must accept the words and statements of Brahmaji as infallible. The Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord under the heart of Brahma, and since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct, to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord, who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as the supreme truth. In the Brahma Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats the aphorism, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I am the worshipper of the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does, normally in his mood, are to be accepted as truth, because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Shri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. O son of Kunti, please declare it. The Lord asks Arjuna to declare. And why? Because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures. But the mundaner will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotional service always begins in the service of the devotee, who appears in the disciplic succession. The devotees are always liberated, but that does not mean that they are impersonal. The Lord is a person eternally, and the devotee of the Lord is also a person eternally. Because the devotee has his sense organs even at the liberated stage, he is therefore a person always. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete spiritual embodiment. The devotee's senses, being engaged in the service of the Lord, never go astray under the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotee never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. This is the standard of perfection and liberation. Anyone, beginning from Brahmaji down to the human being, is at once put on the path of liberation simply by his attachment in great earnestness for the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord. The Lord affirms this in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati jayatan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart, shall I repeat that? Okay. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart, in what? Heart. Yes. Thank you. Just checking. And a soul about... Oh, sorry, I made a big mistake. I left out one word. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul, about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service, will always be infallible in words and action. The reason is that the Supreme Lord is absolute truth, and anything earnestly dovetailed with the absolute truth attains the same transcendental quality. On the other hand, any amount of mental speculation on the strength of material science and knowledge, without any bona fide touch with the absolute truth, is sure to be a mundane untruth and failure, simply due to not being in touch with the absolute truth. Since godless, unfaithful words and actions, however materially enriched, are never to be trusted, that is the purport of this important verse. A grain of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. Text 35. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities, and I am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand Him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Purport. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom, despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. Hridaut kan yavata, which is the devotional mood, the devotional service mood. Therefore the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualification as scientist or speculative philosopher, or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 18:54-55. Brahma bhuta prasanatma nashochati nakankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of Vedic wisdom, austerity, and so on can help one on the path of devotional service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect, because even in that position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self-realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee, by service mood, bhaktya, only, can gradually know the personality of Godhead. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of vishate enters into as referring to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in material existence, one is merged in the existence. Even in material existence, one is merged in the existence of the Lord. No materialist can disentangle self from matter, for the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord. As no layman can separate butter from milk, no one can extricate the merged self from matter by acquiring some material qualification. This vishate by devotion, bhaktya, means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. Bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord, means to become free from material entanglement, and then to enter into the kingdom of God, or of the devotees of the Lord. Oops. Where did I lost my... Bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord, means to become free from material entanglement, and then to enter into the kingdom of God, becoming one like Him. Losing one's individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or of the devotees of the Lord. There are 5 kinds of liberation, one of which is called Sayuja Mukti, or being merged into the existence or body of the Lord. The other forms of liberation maintain the individuality of the particle soul and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word Vishate, used in the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, is thus meant for the devotees who are not at all anxious for any kind of liberation. The devotees are satisfied simply by being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Tenhe Brahma Rida Ya Adi Kavaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantist, therefore, cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta, or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization, and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, by self-surrender and a devotional attitude, and by nothing else. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said, Vedeshu Durlabham, or simply by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham, Atma Bhaktao, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras, but over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master, Narada, he compiled the Srimad-Bhagavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Srimad-Bhagavatam, therefore, is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. Text 36. Therefore it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Purport. Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us, as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings, that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties. So the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He is the father of mankind, of Manu, who is the father of mankind all over the universal planets. Therefore the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and then try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. Thank you, O fact checker. His potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Purasya Shaktir Vividai Vishruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. Svetashvatara Upanishad 6:8. He is the greatest of all, and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a very poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientist says that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe, being carried by a Sputnik. Tells you when this was written. Principles are the same. This is also utopian, because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has become fashionable for modern, bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence, and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life, through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is the instruction of Srimad-Bhagavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. Anyone denying this surrendering process, as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and for that matter, in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad Gita 7:14, and as Me Bina Prakritir Ashtada, or my separated energy in 8 divisions. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad Gita 9:10, Maya Jakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have choice and discrimination, either to surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated. But by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is bhavachidam, liberation from all material miseries. Swastyayanam, perception of all happiness, and samangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky, although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude in our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. That spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured, even by the Lord Himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahmasokyam Tvanantam. Spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but the happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again. And the Lord measures it again. And then again the happiness increases more and more. And the Lord measures it more and more. And as such, there is essentially a competition between increment and measurement. Thank you. And as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is anandam bodhivardhanam, or the ocean of happiness, which is increased, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani Ki Jai, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Yesterday was Radhastami, the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. Text 37. Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability. Purport. We have many times mentioned the names of 12 selected authorities, Dvadasha Mahajana, of which Brahma, Narada, and Lord Shiva head the list as the first, second, and third in order of merit of those who know something of the Supreme Lord. Other demigods, semi-demigods, Gandharvas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, human beings, or Asuras cannot possibly know fully about the potencies of the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna. The demigods, semi-demigods, Gandharvas, etc. are all highly intelligent persons in the upper planets. The human beings are inhabitants of the intermediate planets, and the Asuras are inhabitants of the lower planets. All of them have their respective conceptions and estimations of the Absolute Truth, as does the scientist or the empiric philosopher in human society. All such living entities are creatures of the material nature, and consequently they are bewildered by the wonderful display of the three modes of material nature. Such bewilderment is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Tribir gunoyar bhavayar ebik sarvam idam jagat. Every entity, beginning from Brahma down to the ant, is individually bewildered by the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everyone thinks in terms of individual capacity, that this universe, which is manifested before us, is all in all. And so the scientist in the human society of the 20th century calculates the beginning and end of the universe in his own way. But what can the scientist know? Even Brahma himself was once bewildered, thinking himself the only one Brahma favored by the Lord. But later on, by the grace of the Lord, he came to know that there are innumerable, more powerful Brahmas as well, in far bigger universes beyond this universe. And all of these universes combined together form Ekapad Vibhuti, or 1/4 of the manifestation of the Lord's creative energy. The other 3/4 of his energy are displayed in the spiritual world. And so what can the tiny scientist with a tiny brain know of the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna? The Lord says, therefore, Mohitam na vijanati mam ebyak paramavyayam. Bewildered by such modes of material nature, they cannot understand that beyond these manifestations is a supreme person who is the absolute controller of everything. Brahma, Narada, and Lord Shiva know about the Lord to a considerable extent, and therefore one should follow the instructions of these great personalities instead of being satisfied with a tiny brain and its playful discoveries such as spacecraft and similar products of science. As the mother is the only authority to identify the father of a child, so the mother Vedas, presented by the recognized authority, such as Brahma, Narada, or Shiva, is the only authority to inform us about the absolute truth. And we'll stop the reading for tonight. Hare Krishna. So, this is our recollection or reflection, anything that's stuck out in your mind that you want to discuss or give a realization about or inquire about, please feel free. Hare Krishna.
Or if the demons, the asuras, reside in the lower planets, do they have to do some good things to come to the planet? Because if we do good things, we go up in the planetary system.
Generally speaking, those demons have to get killed by Krishna. They have to become more and more demoniac until they become so demoniac that Krishna comes and kills them. And then they get liberation.
But what I'm wondering is if they reside in the lower planetary system, and how would they make it to the earthly, this realm?
They have powers beyond our powers. They have powers beyond our powers. When Krishna came and organized the battle of Kurukshetra, the demigods and the asuras, or demons, they're very, very powerful, much more powerful than we are. And they took birth on the earth to duke it out on the earth. They wanted to have, a battle on the earth, because that's what they do, the demons. The demigods are protecting the principles of religion, the laws of nature. The demons are always trying to upend the laws of nature. That's their nature. That's what they do for a living. They upend the material nature and cause confusion and chaos among the living beings and increase the suffering. And you don't have to look very far to find out how that works. Just read a few of the headlines nowadays and you'll see it bold-faced. So they come and they duke it out, and then Krishna so kindly brings them together on a battlefield, and 640 million of them are killed. And because he's there, and because all of them have seen him within the last few minutes of their life, they all become perfect. So it's not that Krishna is anyone's enemy. There's a word, ajata shatru. Ajata shatru means a person whose enemy has never been born. Yudhishthira was one such person. Ajata shatru. His enemy was never born. That means from his point of view, he didn't consider anyone his enemy, even the demons who were trying to, and who did, usurp his rightful claim or rightful place as the emperor of this planet. But he agreed with Krishna to take it back for the benefit of all the people of the earth. But what ended up happening was that the demons and the demigods who came and fought and lost their lives were benefited, all of them, because of Krishna's grace. Therefore he says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dvesha stina priyaha. I'm not stina priyaha. I'm not, no one is more dear to me than someone else. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya ye maite chechuchapyaham. But how a person approaches me, I respond accordingly. That's our nature. And our nature is coming from Krishna. That's why when we hear about Krishna, then we can understand, and we analyze ourselves as a part of spirit, as an infinitesimal spiritual being, then we can start to understand who Krishna is. Because he has all the qualities we have, and then some, and then some. Not that we have all the qualities, but we have a good percentage, like let's say 70%, 78%, that's what Rupa Goswami analyzes all the different qualities, the categories of qualities. And we can have 78% to a small degree. But he has 100% to unlimited degree, infinite degree. So therefore, how people approach him, he reciprocates it for me. And if we approach him with a sword in his hand, he approaches us with the sword in his hand, and he never loses. And it's all written down in history books, how he never loses. So, if you're smart, you'll take his side. Yes?
So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. So internal is spiritual, external is material. What is marginal?
Marginal is the living being, the jiva soul. The jiva soul is marginal in the sense that he can choose to be in either. But in either case, he's controlled by Krishna. Just like I always use it, Bhakti John asked me the same question. He's not here tonight. Very salt of the earth lad, Jan. And he was trying to understand this, how it is that we're in a prison house. And I said, well, if you're living in Huntsville, what's the name of that prison?
Huntsville prison.
Huntsville prison. There you go. Thank you very much. If you're living in Huntsville prison, it's not that you're not living in Huntsville. You're living in Huntsville, but you've got a whole bunch of extra, laws that you have to follow, that you're forced to follow. So we're in the spiritual world right now, all of us, every single living being. But we're in the covered walls of the universe, and all we can see is that. We have extra laws that we have to follow, like it or not, even if we think that we don't have to. It's all just in the mind, because we do have to. We have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to pass stool, we have to do all kinds of things for the maintaining of the body. We have to get sick. Nobody likes to get sick. Every single one gets sick in this material world. There's no exception. And so we think we're free, or we think, even worse, we're God. Hello? Wake up. So, therefore, Prabhupada was saying in the purports that either we surrender voluntarily now, or at the time of death. Then you will see God face to face, in the form of death. You won't necessarily see the most beautiful, powerful, opulent, knowledgeable, renounced person in both the spiritual and material worlds, but you will see death. And he is death. Kalos me, he says. Time I am. And I've come to destroy the world and everyone in it. But the soul never is destroyed. That's the point. That's the point. He's doing all that simply to give us a chance to wake up and realize, hey, why am I suffering? Why am I dying? I don't want to die. Why do I have to die? Why can't I just, well, the scientists are trying. Just give us a few more years. Now they're making robots, and they're going to figure out a way to put a chip in it that somehow or other attracts all the energies that are needed, combined together to become conscious, and then, we'll all live in, what is that called? The Matrix. Well, I got news for you. We're already living in the Matrix, buddy. I'm sorry. When you've been studying these books as long as I have, been practicing as long as I have, without deviation, it's a joke. Sorry. Don't mean to offend anybody. Hare Krishna. Who am I? Just a little tiny, insignificant jiva. Feel like the father, little boy, little child, or boy or girl, and there's a bully on the block, and it's always, hassling and making me cry or beat me up or whatever. And the same child's walking down the middle of the street, and the bully is over there on the sidewalk. He's got the hand of the father, and he's going, come on. Because he's got the hand of the father, and he knows the bully isn't going, another bully child isn't going to be able to do anything. It's up to us. We can take whatever side we want. And we take the consequences. Whatever side we choose, we take the consequences. And that's life in material existence. If we go to the spiritual world, we get a body that's the same as Krishna's in quality. So it's like this. Okay, a person may say or may think, prove it. How do you prove it? And then we say, okay, how do you prove what was the original cause? Cause and effect. It's around, it's everywhere. Even though it's the most brilliant scientific minds in the history of civilized modern man have understood this. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction in the laws of nature. It's built in. So, what was the first action? And if you say it's unknowable, or if you say we will know, like blank check, post-dated, I'll give you a check for the $1 million debt that I owe you, and I'm going to date it 5015. It'll be good then. Anybody sane is going to take that? No. Okay, so just for argument's sake, say that we can't prove it, and the persons who have a materialistic conception of what's the origin can't prove it. So then, what am I going to do? What am I going to choose? On one hand, you have Bhakti Yoga, which can give us eternal life of bliss and knowledge. A body that is so incredible that every part of the body can do the things of all the other parts of the body. And it was described how bliss is always increasing in the spiritual world. That's one option. And the other option is nothing. At the time of death, there's nothing. So what are you going to choose? If you're smart, you're going to choose at least that there's a possibility of eternal life and bliss and unlimited knowledge. But when you start sincerely, as was mentioned in the purport, one of the purports, if you start sincerely and eagerly trying to understand and systematically go through all the scriptures, not just one of them, not just the first one, and then make a conclusion. You go through all these scriptures, we challenge anyone. Systematically go through. That doesn't mean that everyone that goes systematically is going to come to the right conclusion. It takes some, as Prabhupada mentioned in these purports, sincerity. It takes sincerity. What does sincerity mean? It means honesty, and it means freedom from envy. If we have these two qualities, if we don't envy a person who's doing better than we are, or who is more fortunate than we are, and if we're honest, then we can hear the Bhagavatam. Christ said, let those who have ears hear. This is what he meant. If you're honest, honesty doesn't mean you just do what you're going to say you're going to do and show up on time and pay your bills, and like that. It means if you hear something that's actually true, you can accept it. Because you have to understand it. To accept something to be true, you have to first understand it. Otherwise you can't. Otherwise it's blind following, and we don't like blind following. We would rather you doubt and duke it out. Let us, bring it out. Bring it on. Let us duke it out and see, what is the truth? What argument it actually appeals to, a sincere, honest, intelligent person.
I'm not an honest person, but there's benefit of the doubt.
Excuse me?
Not an honest person doesn't just doubt for doubt's sake.
Yes.
He gives it.
If you in the 20th, this is good. Thank you, Sarva. He says an honest person doesn't doubt for doubt's sake. We want everyone who comes to this movement to doubt first. Actually, in the creation of the universe, which we will hear about in the 3rd canto, now we're in the 2nd canto, and there's some description of the cosmic manifestation and how it came into being. And in the 3rd canto, it's unpacked and elaborately described, step by step, all the different parts, what their functions are, what their original functions are meant to be, and how it is, therefore, that we misuse them. So when it came to creation of the intelligence, or the subtle energy of intelligence, which makes up the subtle body, we have the gross body, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Earth, water, air, fire, and sky. And then you have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego, or the misconception that we are the body, or that we are matter. So the functions of the intelligence are given in the 26th chapter of the 3rd canto. And they are like this. Number 1, doubt. Number 2, correct apprehension. Number 3, misapprehension. Number 4, memory. And number 5, sleep. Have you ever noticed how when you don't get enough sleep, you don't function? You see, your intelligence can't function properly. Memo to Trump. Take a nap. Yeah. Take a nap, man. What are you doing? Tweeting at 12 at night.
Yeah.
Give us a break. Anyway. Hare Krishna. There in the purport, Srila Prabhupada analyzes what this means. That doubt is the first function of the intelligence. He says there that if someone doesn't doubt what comes in front of him at first, he's not exhibiting intelligence. And with that intelligence, we should search. And when we come to a source that can satisfy that intelligence, then we should give up that doubt. The doubting helps us. The doubting serves our purpose when we reject sources of knowledge that are incomplete, or at least according to our position now, unsatisfying, or not deep enough to satisfy us. And then when you come to the source, so therefore doubt is constructive up to a point. In the Bible, the guy was called Doubting Thomas. No matter what evidence he got, he had to put his hand in the wounds. He had to do that in order for his doubt to be removed. I think maybe he still had doubt, but whatever. So doubting is productive until one meets a source of knowledge that is true, actual, full. Krishna, God, absolute truth, sublime wisdom. And then If one doesn't give up that doubt and keeps doubting, then it becomes challenge. And when it becomes challenge, then Krishna goes, okay, if you insist. And then he turns his back and goes the other way. And we have to, again, take the body of whatever, wherever. That's the actual situation. That's, as Prabhupada would say, that is the position. And it's not the position for me or you, or it's the position of everyone in this universe. Okay, I got up at 2 and I haven't slept yet. So, following my own advice, I'm going to take a little rest so that I can get up tomorrow and record the Chaitanya Charitamrita for the BBT. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No. Thank you. Because there's a relationship between the tongue of the speaker and the ears and hearts of the audience. And I'm telling you just straight, tonight it was really easy to speak because there's some hearts and minds in this room right now that are ready to hear. Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.